Welcome to this very first program of It's Your Business. We ran in a 6-part series, and this one we're going to be launching today, the very, very first one. The program is about taking your business to the next level. As an entrepreneur, you might be in the position where you've just started a business, you might have an established business, or you're even thinking about starting a business. And we want to take you, whatever it takes, to get you to that next level in business. I'm Wayne Turner, and I'm going to be your host throughout the series. And with me, I have our resident expert, who is Murray Kilgour, and he's going to be talking all things entrepreneurial. We'll chat a bit about that in a few minutes. This is going to be an exciting series, and starting every week, we're going to be having a guest in the program, someone who really knows what they're talking about, who's actually put into practice entrepreneurial principles in their business. We're also going to have a short video clip of someone who has faced the challenges and also the successes of the particular subject we're going to be handling. And of course, our resident expert, he's going to be coming up with some expertness to really establish what we are talking about. So, Murray, what do we have in this show? What are we going to be talking about? What's our subject?
Our subject today, Wayne, we're going to be talking about the whole area of vision and goals. And it's a great way to start this series, because if you haven't got a picture of a desired future or a picture of the future that you want for your business, it's very difficult to go there. So a lot of people just have an idea or a dream, but they never ever put that into writing. They never discuss it with their team. And so everyone's walking around a bit blindfolded. And they tend, after a while, to kind of like be walking in all different directions. So the best way I can demonstrate this is with an elastic band, if I may. And the best way with an elastic band is to show that if this here, where my fist is, represents where you want to be going to, and where my hand is here below shows where we are now, that you want to create a picture of a future where my fist is up top here that will draw you towards something very meaningful and purposeful. Now, two things happen. One is people set such unrealistic targets that they put it out there and everyone's wincing, hoping it doesn't snap, and I hope so too. And they put it out there so far that they actually can't get to their vision. And so it's unrealistic. Some people set a vision that is so slop, so sort of loose and so small that they'll be able to get there within the space of a week or two. So you want to create something that's got what we call a dynamic tension. So we want to have what we call the to-be state, what it wants to be, a dynamic tension in between, and where we are today. So it's realistic, but it has a stretch. Now, let's examine the elastic band. Let's assume this is a ladder. Now, a ladder has got rungs on it that you get from here to here. Now, I speak to many people that have got dreams that when they're 65, they say, I'm so sorry that I never ever got there. You know what? They never ever walked the ladder from here to here. So each one of these rungs represents goals that need to be set. So the humble goal is the way that we get to vision. And you have to be able to set goals in a realistic manner and carry them out day to day. So I always say, if your vision isn't alive in your diary, you don't have a vision. And we say for a goal that you have to have 5 ways to wrap a goal. And we'll have some of the stuff on our website. But a goal has to have 5 key components. First of all, you have to think it through. Your brain has to engage. Secondly, you must write it down. Thirdly, you need to talk about it. Fourthly, it must be time-based. And fifthly, it must have some kind of specific measurable that you can look at. If you set your goals in that way, that makes up this ladder. And you'll find that you slowly but surely start getting there. The last thing I want to say about goals and vision is sometimes it's even better to set a vision as part of your long-term picture that is so big that we call it a big BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. And in a way, it might take 1, 2, 3 of those to get to it. And I have some BHAGs that I've set that take me up to 15 to 20 years to achieve. But they're so big that they draw me like a huge magnet into the future. So in summary, we must have a vision that is compelling and meaningful and shared. Secondly, we must have proper goals that we set. And thirdly, think really big into BHAG territory.
Well, a lot of food for thought there. I mean, and also quite a bit of tension as watching that elastic. We have with us in studio today Roger Waugh, a businessman, top businessman in Cape Town, who's really put into practice some of the things Murray's been chatting about. Murray, introduce us.
Yes,
a bit of
it's a delight to have you, Roger. Thanks for being with us today. Roger's a very good friend of mine, and he has been a client and worked with him for a number of years. And I've asked Roger just to share a few minutes of what his business looks like and what he does down here in Cape Town, just so it forms a background for when we do the questions and the discussion just now. So, Roger?
Well, Mary Wayne, it's wonderful to be with you guys. The background of the company is in the meat industry. So we've got retail stores that supply to the lower LSM across the Western Cape, and manufacturing plants that supply to retail stores that supply the lower LSM. And it started in around 1995 by my mother and my father. And it grew, but in around 2006, my mother was tragically killed, and the company went insolvent. And at that stage, my father handed the company over to me when I was 22. And the current state of the company, we have about 280 employees and 180 million rand turnover across the group.
Great. And you're based in Cape Town or beyond?
We're based in Cape Town, but we supply up to the Eastern Cape and parts of the Northern Cape.
Great. Thanks very much.
So, getting back into the subject, what Murray's talking about now about goals and visions, why is it important for you, in a business like yours, to set goals and have a vision?
Well, I think the important thing is that people are all able to be on the same page. Generally, if you don't set a direction, people start wandering to the left and the right. And I like using the analogy of Olympic rows. They're powerful athletes that are able to take the boat to a certain direction. But if they're not taking it the same direction, you're going to have a lot of problems. So in a company, when you can clearly define what the visions are, what the goals are, it galvanizes people's ability to put all their resources in the same direction. Their thinking, their money, their time, their energy, their networks. Absolutely everything comes to the point where they know what they want to say yes to, and then they also know what they want to say no to.
So it's almost like everybody has a rallying point in the future, and that you obviously must have sat down and discussed that with your leadership team, and then did you then push it down into the structure in a certain way that everybody bought into it?
I think what I'm quite big on is co-creating. So I love the ability to be able to sit with my leaders and see what they've got to think. Often I throw out the skeleton and they throw on the meat, excuse the pun in the meat industry. But it becomes one of those things where we set out an outline and we begin to just talk and dream together. And I think that creates buy-in, but to a certain degree, people that aren't involved in the visioning have to catch to one component, and then we allow them to dream within that sphere themselves.
So they can kind of modify it or add within that context.
That's correct.
Now, give us an example of maybe what a vision was and what a vision became that allowed you to grow the business to this size.
Yeah, well, originally when the company started and I jumped in, we were mostly focused on the retail market and hotels and restaurants of the higher LSM. And we generally found there was an incredible amount of headaches supplying the restaurants because they'd return things and they wouldn't pay on time. And fussy, correct. And there were just a lot of problems. And we compared it to supplying to the African market, and we realized it's two total different worlds to supply to. And so we shifted our vision to go, actually, the place we want to be in is supplying the lower LSM through our retail stores. And we already had some good manufacturing products that we supplied to our retail stores. And we thought, actually, we want to put this thing on steroids and make this thing really fly. And so we actually decided to cut away the hotel restaurant industry and move towards manufacturing, supplying to the lower LSM.
So you actually took quite a bit of risk to change your vision, because if you'd lost the hotels, there was a lot of money in those contracts, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was incredibly scary time. And one of the things I had to balance in my thinking was I might lose a 25 million rand component of a company now, but that freedom of mind, that freedom of thought would allow me maybe to make 50, 70 million in the times to come. And yes, we did lose 60 people during the retrenchment, but the thought was actually maybe we'd be able to employ 100 people, in 4 or 5 years' time and have the freedom of mind and low levels of stress.
So how did you get people to believe you? Because, I mean, this was something that was conceptual. Many people who have got their own businesses actually have a great dream, but they might actually fall on their ear trying to implement it. I mean, there must have been times when you woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning with a knot in your tummy thinking, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah, totally. I think you've got incredible doubts. The company starts in 1995, and it's been doing this for a good 10 years plus. Everyone expects, the industry's got expectations on how things happen. Your managers have expectations. No one likes change. It's their job's at stake. And I'd actually sat on this thought for about 3 to 4 years, prior to actually telling the rest of the managers. But I think when crisis eventually hit, when we realized that we were growing and we wouldn't be able to grow at the same rate, and we'd never reach any of the visions we wanted, and so it forced us to go, if we're not going to be able to do it in 5 years' time, we might as well stop it now. And that became the sort of rallying point for guys to actually realize that we had to change.
Did you have like a winner sentence, a rally cry of saying it's this and not that, so people had some language they could use and hold on to? Or how did you put that concept into the hands of all of your staff?
I think it wasn't so much around the vision, but the one liner that I love so much, that simplicity allows for scalability. And hotels and restaurants is a very, very complex thing in terms of how to cut meat. Each guy wants his meat cut differently, and they want this amount supplied and not that amount, whereas the retail market was very simple. And we just realized that in all levels across the company, we needed simplicity. And so that became the rallying cry. Guys, let's get simplified, let's get focused, and from that we can expand and grow.
But you did say there was a big element of fear.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a really scary place to be in. I mean, how did you overcome that fear?
I don't think I actually did overcome it. I have to admit. I think sometimes when you're in a rock and hard place, you actually just choose one of them. And I realized that we would not be able to continue supplying hotels and restaurants with that level of stress and that level of complexity. And so I did a zero-based budget, did my calculations, decided actually it's worth the risk. Got together with some of our managers and spent some time haggling back and forward. I remember that we planned it for 6 months. And literally 2 weeks before we were going to start the retrenchment process, 2 of my key managers came to me and they made a last 11th hour appeal for us not to do it. But at the state that I was in, I just realized we actually cannot. So pushed it, we haggled, and after an hour and a half, we kind of just all bought in saying, actually, we do need to do this. And then from that, we crossed over into making the decision.
So basically what you're saying, goals and vision aren't set in concrete.
Correct. I think that you're going to have external forces that change your ability to reach your own visions, and if that happens, then you do have to change course. So definitely, I think that you can set vision to some degree, but depending on outside influences, depending on internal influences and outside opportunities, you might change the vision. But by and large, I think you do want to have some general sort of target out in the outline that you can go, that's where we want to go to, unless something else changes.
Now, Roger, I speak quite a bit about the fact that the humble goal is the way to achieve vision. Would you agree with that?
Correct.
Now, setting goals doesn't have the glitz and the glamour of a grand vision and smoke and mirrors and all that kind of stuff. So speak to us a little bit about once you actually thought about taking the business to that Joe brand, that changing of the model, how did goal setting make that reachable? How did it help you?
Well, generally when I set visions, they are at 1-year intervals or they'll be at 5-year intervals. So I'll see the whole picture of where we want to get to. And it really needs to be made up of those small, tiny chunks. Otherwise, you don't really feel motivated. I think the beautiful thing about setting goals is that it allows you to fit it in piece by piece by piece. The one sentence I like using with our managers is it's the 1,000,000 steps in the right direction. That we're not going to be able to walk from Cape to Cairo unless you take one step at a time. And it kind of gives you that hard motivation that every time you're looking down, you can look up and go, that's the vision, that's why we're doing what we're doing, and we add these small incremental wins.
So it's like how do you eat an elephant, one elephant burger at a time, that type of
go.
thing. Roger, speak to me about, because I've had to deal with this a lot in the work that I do in coaching entrepreneurs, is that a lot of people want to get into vision setting. So in other words, I've got a small business, I'm getting out, I'm either started my business or I've taken over a little business, and I've never really dreamt big. And maybe today I'm thinking, boy, I could really take my business to the next level. This is a great invitation. Where would you say someone should start as the leader of an entrepreneur of their little business?
What I really, really loved was the example you gave of the elastic band, that some people overstretch and they think they're going to conquer the world. And you'll have those people that say, just dream big, do whatever you want to do. And sometimes it's just not realistic. You're not going to be the best ballerina in the world if you're living in Somalia, for example. And so I think one part is actually to look at your strength. What do you have in your hand? What are your resources? What are your connections? What are your advantages that you naturally do have? And from that basis going, and asking your suppliers, asking your customers, what am I really good at? And then from that position, you actually can go, okay, well, what could it look like if I became extremely good at it? What would it look like if I became absolutely amazing at it? And that starts to give you a glimmer of what your vision is. And it's also helpful then to ask suppliers around you going, do you think that this is somewhere that I could be? Do you think this is a profitable place that I could really be in days to come? And often you'll get very good, refreshing thoughts from people outside that you're blind to the things that you're actually amazing. And that would be my starting point is, what are you good at? What are your resources? And hammer that home. Extend your lead on what you're great at.
And I think another great question to ask with that is saying, if I look at what's out there, what isn't there? What's missing? In other words, what gap can I fill in the market? What's the purple cow? What's the thing that stands out in the herd that makes the thing that I want to do different to what others want to do? Because I think a lot of us, we watch a lot of TV programs, read a lot of books, and we go and borrow ideas from other people. But we also find a lot of people also read those books and also watch those TV programs. So there's a lot of similar in the marketplace in terms of vision. So would you agree that your vision has to be a standout vision to give you that competitive edge?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think if everyone's doing the same thing, you're going to have nothing different to be able to provide for people. That's why I absolutely love creators. I myself, I'm not totally creative. I don't have millions of ideas, but I know you're one of those men that have incredible amounts of ideas. And I love sitting with people who have lots of ideas, and they splash it out before me, and they're saying which one actually fits with the strategy. And that's why I like adapting my strengths with people with their creative and ideation abilities.
Speak to me a little bit about resistance to vision. It's wonderful to talk about all this lacquer stuff. We're so happy when we see it. But often, behind the scenes, you have self-doubt, which is self-resistance. You have resistance from the marketplace. You're going to do what? And then mostly, I think you get resistance from in your own organization. People do not want to change. And if it's not broken, don't fix it. And these people don't see what you see. How do you deal with those resistances? How did you deal with that? Like you said, there was a little bit of a mutiny when the guy said at the last minute, don't do the retrenchments. But how does someone deal with that without basically just dropping the vision and going back to what they were doing in the first place?
I think the one component is that if you already do have a bit of credibility with a track record of doing things right, people tend to give you the benefit of the doubt during those 50-50 decisions. That's the easiest one. If you don't have a track record, that becomes the difficult part. And in those moments, I think it is, I call it the law of the path of least resistance, is you go to the people that already are on your side, that already do buy into your vision, and you spend time with them, give them a bit of airtime to voice their opinion, and there tends to be some sort of trickle-on effect where more people gain confidence because there's a greater number of people that are actually backing it.
So you want to get some quick wins of people who are actually part of your team, as it were, and you work with them.
Correct.
The other question I had was in terms of engaging the right people. Some people say, well, you know what, I go away, I write out the vision, I get the goals, I send a memo to my staff, and I say, this is what we'll be doing on Monday. My impression of that and my experience is that the buy-in factor is very low. And what happens is that when the leader starts coming adrift and falling apart, the staff look up and they say, shame, you know, he went away and he got a vision and it isn't working, so I hope he sorts himself out. And the leader's sort of separated from the herd, versus the leader engaging in a participative manner to say, it's our vision, we all scrum down together. Just your comment on the difference between the two?
Well, in our real practical example on business, in Anchor Foods, we've got Grant Salt, who's the managing director, and Atlantic Meat, we've got another MD named Mike Deraval. And these guys are actually the big dreamers. They vision a lot, and I totally and absolutely back them in dreaming. And a lot of the time, they actually out-dream me, and I spend most of my time just strategizing around them how they can actually bring that to be. And what happens is there's a transference of heart and ownership where they really want to complete something because it's their own thing, as opposed to someone else's.
Yes, because it's very hard to live on a borrowed vision. So I also believe in the concept of being a subvisionary. So in other words, Mike, he sees the big vision, but he's got his own operation where he has to have a vision within a vision. Do you think people should be allowed within their departments to have a subvision, or do they just have to bow to the vision upstairs?
I think when you work in team, there needs to be a deference back and forward to what someone that reports to you, what they say, and the leader needs to be able to look at it and go, wow, that is actually good and valid. And I think at the end of the day, you actually need the person that's reporting to you to actually submit their vision under the greater vision. Otherwise, you're going to have a team that's running in different directions. Yeah. But that openness for mutual learning is absolutely vital to have buy-in into a vision.
I totally agree. I mean, I think when I see people in a sub-visionary sort of space, that they get themselves a lot more ownership from their team, as long as it doesn't violate it. So I always talk about alignment, that this is going to be aligned with that, but allow teams to develop their own sense of identity, as long as it's well submitted and it's not a mutiny, and allows people to move into that space.
That's great. One of the lines that I love is, if you dictate a vision, it'll last for as long as you have breath. If you co-create a vision, it will last for eternity, because many people are holding it, and it's not just one person saying one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Wow, lots of food for thought. I just want to come back to that whole thing of staff buy-in. You know, you talk about the minimum buy-in. Is that your level, the ceiling, the minimum buy-in, or do you get those staff to lift that level of buy-in, more enthusiastic?
Well, Jenny, I love the idea that people will dream more than me, and I want them to. I want them to be able to carry something greater than I am. At the moment, I work one day a week at Atlantic Meat and one day a week at Anchor. So I don't have the same amount of time, the same amount of passion to be able to think through it. So for them to be able to carry it and speak about it and think through it, they're probably living it more than I am from a day-to-day place. So in that way, yes, I totally agree that the buy-in level needs to be able to seep through as they speak with their teams.
One thing I've noticed is you notice it in the language. If the people's language changes, so when you walk around the floor and the staff are talking about the different things, you know that that's not the language of the managers, that's our language. And I love it when I hear people using phrases that they did in the creation stage.
Sure.
Because that shows that it's gone from just sort of mental sort of assent to it's in my heart and I own it.
Sure.
Have you found that with Atlantic and Anchor, that the people kind of talk the language of the vision?
I think the difference is there'll often be the language from upper management to the general management, and there's a process of filtering down from us to that other layer, and there will be another process of that layer going down. So I think the further away you get from the leadership of the team, the less the language gets used, but gradually it does as it gets massaged in over and over and over again. It's never a momentary thing. It happens again and again and again. The conversations around vision really get entrenched in people.
We're going to do another program on leadership, but just your comments on this. People who've got a small business, so I'm me and I've got 1 or 2 or 3 staff, and we together, so I don't have departments and a whole big thing. And we kind of sit and go get a coffee together in the morning and have a chat and then go out and do our business, our busyness of the day. Is it harder for that group to have a compelling vision, or do you think it's easier?
Well, I think it's different from different places. When you've got a bigger company, you've got more options of what you can do, but to change the direction is a lot heavier. If it's a smaller company, you can change direction quite easily. Yeah. But in terms of like the value of the vision, I think it's equal for both to be able to dream well and use what they have to try and complete it.
Although I think with a smaller team, you can sit down and discuss the vision over a cup of coffee without having to have 4 or 5 other meetings.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sort of sitting back here just catching the whole vision of this discussion. But Roger, that's amazing. Just seeing how it's been practically implemented in a very large company. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. We've got lots of food for thought, and our viewers, I'm pretty sure they've got a lot of food for thought as well. What we're going to do now is, in each program, we've got a little 3-minute video clip where we have gone into a business and interviewed someone who's actually put the subject into practice, and they'll share their successes and sometimes the challenges that they face. So we're going to go to that clip right now.
Hi, I'm Garth Jemmett, and I'm one of the co-founders of Flick Visual Foundry. And what we do here at Flick is we specialize in visualizing and explaining complex information to our clients. It's paramount that you understand something yourself before you can distill it and explain it to your target audience. So that's what we do as a business. I've been asked today to talk to you about goal setting and why that's important. And for us as a business, and specifically for me myself, leading new business development, it's a very, very important thing to do, because it allows you to see over the bow of the boat as to where you're going and what you want to achieve. And I'm a firm believer that action creates clarity. So what a goal is for me in terms of goal setting is it's a little sliver of the future that I'm predicting for myself and for the business in terms of moving forward. So what I will do is I will look at various areas of my life, from business through to personal, in terms of maybe it's a spiritual or it's some kind of personal development, through to family, through to finance, and I'll break up different areas of my life in terms of those categories. And then I'll set a few goals for those areas for myself, just so that I can see in a few weeks' time, in a few months' time, and in a year's time, what is possibly gonna happen. And the thing with goals is, what's very important with them is purely the fact that you write them down. I think the stats say that there's about 60% chance of achieving them, because your subconscious automatically starts clicking in and goes, how can I achieve that? But more than that, what goals actually do is they actually flex and exercise your courage as an individual, because often people set amazing goals, but there's a lot of things that hamper them in terms of moving forward. Maybe it's a lack of self-confidence, or it's an uncertainty about what exactly you want to be doing. But it's just in the fact of moving forward and making decisions to try and achieve that goal that you get clarity. And that's why I said earlier, just the fact that action creates clarity. And for me, in terms of my specific role at Flick, in terms of new business development and getting out there, I believe that goals really do get you out there. So because of that, I think they're vital for any business. They're vital for any entrepreneur or any leader that is trying to move forward and gain new ground. How you process those goals for yourself and how you manage your time to get them is definitely a challenge that you've got to work on.
We just had a look at a video clip of someone who's actually put into practice goals and vision, and as well as facing the challenges. So Murray, out of the chat with Roger and the little video clip we've seen, give us some key takeaways.
Okay, so here's a few, and we're going to put this on our website so you can actually pick this up for free, just some worksheets. But the first thing is that you make sure that you get yourself a vision, whether it's in a sentence or a picture, or I don't get too complicated. Everyone wants a little one-liner. It doesn't have to be that. But get yourself a picture of that desired future, that piece that's up there, and write down what that is, and get the people that are around you in your team to buy into it so that it's not just yours, but it's ours. The second thing is go to the goal sheet that we're going to be making available and start writing down goals that are pertinent to the vision. And in the goals, you'll be able to see the 5 wrappers that we mentioned previously and the areas where you can actually write down the goal, the deadline, and what we call quarterly updates. So every quarter you predict what you're going to do. So it's very specific, not touchy-feely. And if you've got your vision and your goals are aligned to your vision, you'll be amazed after the first 90 days and then 120 days, or whatever it might be as you go along, that you will see your progress getting better and better. So number 1, set the vision. Number 2, set amazing goals and align them and review them. Wayne?
So lots of food for thought, and I think the key to this whole thing is being able to implement those visions, is having some sort of help, and we'd like to offer some help, and that is go to the website. It's www.murraykilgour.com. That's MURRAYKILGOUR.com. We are going to pop it onto the screen, and look for the CTV link. We're going to make a link there with CTV that is going to give you a link to be able to download the practical worksheets that we are talking about. The program, I think it's been action-packed. Roger, I mean, the food for thought there, I think we're going to have food for thought for weeks, pardon the pun in the meat industry. And one little thing before we go, Roger actually retired from his business at the age of 29. So what he's talking about has got a lot of weight. So the website, you'll have the link to CTV. You can go have a look there. And in future programs, we're going to be looking at a variety of subjects, from your dream team to leadership. There's a host of subjects that we'll be looking at. So stay tuned every week to this program, It's Your Business. And we're going to do our level best to give you the best content, the best guests. We've got guests coming from all over the country, so you can expect some really, really great input. From me, Wayne Turner, your host, until next time.
Thank you very much.
Roger, thanks for joining us in the studio. We'll see you again in a week's time.